2022 was a breakthrough season for Bret Bielema and the Illinois Fighting Illini. They came so close to capturing that Big Ten West Division Championship. Now the question as we look forward to 2023, can this version of the orange and blue prove that last season was no fluke and this is the norm for Illini football going forward?
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
You know, this was the best season. 2022 was the best season for the Illini in 15 years. You got to go back to 2007 for the last time an Illinois football team won 8 or more games. They won 9 games that season. That was that team that went to the Rose Bowl. So last season, big time breakthrough for Bret Bielema and Illinois. Now, a big reason why this Illinois team broke through last season was because of that vaunted defense. The improvement that the defense made at Illinois was a big reason why. Now, you lose your defensive coordinator, Ryan Walters, and his right-hand man, Kevin Kane. Both of those guys are on their way to Purdue. They're in Purdue, right? Ryan Walters is the head coach over there. So you bring in Aaron Henry, former player under Bret Bielema. When he coached, he was the head coach at Wisconsin. So Aaron Henry is now the defensive coordinator. So can they carry over that defensive success under a new coordinator? That's a big question. It seems like that they will be able to do so. And I think a big reason why they're going to have success yet again is because of that front seven. Man, they've got some killers up front, especially on the defensive line. They have got two of the best, folks. Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph are as good as it gets on the defensive line, and they're both have the eye on the helmet in orange and blue playing football in Champaign, Illinois. Johnny Newton, an all-American type of player. Keith Randolph, an all-conference type of player. These two players coming off either end of the defensive line is going to wreak havoc. Okay, so Nick Herbig led the Big Ten in tackles for loss last season. These two guys were number 2 and 3. So you have the top 2 returners in tackles for loss in the Big Ten Conference. These two guys are going to live in the backfield, and I think the production of the defense really starts with those two guys. If they can continue to live in the backfield, if they can continue to create pressure on the quarterbacks and others back there, it's going to make things easier on that secondary, which is replacing a lot. I'll get to that a little bit later in the video. These guys are as good as it gets on a great Illinois defense. Now, behind these guys, you have the linebackers, right? Those guys are great. Those numbers are great. But then you look at the linebackers, and this is another really good group. The guy that I really want to put the spotlight on is Gabe Akis, 2022 freshman All-American. He's the only returning freshman All-American in the Big Ten West, by the way. Number 2 in Illini history in sacks as a freshman, 4 behind only, Simeon Rice. That's pretty good company, right? 12th in the nation in quarterback hits with 13, according to Pro Football Focus. 6'3", 265 pounds, and this guy can move and flow to the football and get in the backfield like those two guys we just talked about before. I expect him to take a big jump forward at linebacker. They got Tariq Barnes and Seth Coleman back there as well, both all Big Ten honorable mentions last season. Coleman had 4.5 sacks. That was second on the team, 45 and 46 tackles respectively between these two guys. So we've established that this front seven at Illinois is going to be really good. Maybe they might even be better than last season. But now you got to take a look at the secondary, because that's the big question mark for this Illinois defense. Last year, you had generational players back there. Sidney Brown and, of course, Devon Witherspoon back there. Devon Witherspoon might be the best player that was drafted in the NFL draft this past spring. So how do you replace those guys? Okay, first thing, when you lose that type of talent, a popular thing to do these days is go to the transfer portal. They picked up Louisville transfer Nicario Harper. Now, he started his career at FCS Jacksonville State. In 2020, he was the Ohio Valley Conference Defensive Player of the Year, first team FCS All-American, 92 tackles and 3 interceptions that year. Injuries, transferring in the middle of the season from Louisville, he just hasn't been able to replicate that season. Now, if he's able to maybe get back onto that level, Illinois could find a way to possibly replace some of that safety talent that Sidney Brown left behind. But I think that's a little uncertain whether he's going to get to that level back there. Matthew Bailey is another guy to keep an eye on. 3 interceptions last season. He didn't start until the bowl game, but was still involved on a weekly basis inside this defense. There's a couple of corners that are coming back that started and played a good amount of time last season. So I think the secondary is good. I don't think it's great like last season was, but really when you take a look at the Illini secondary, they just can't be a liability. This secondary needs to be good enough. They can't get burned continuously. They can't be committing holding or pass interference penalties continuously and really putting all that more pressure on the front seven. Look, Johnny Newton, Keith Randolph, Gabe Yakis, Barnes, Coleman, all these guys, they're great, but they're not going to be able to get to the quarterback every single play. You're going to have to defend one-on-one coverage, zone coverage, whatever you're doing back there. You're going to need to cover. Illinois is going to need to cover at some point. So if they can just be good enough and the front seven takes a step forward and is excelling, this Illinois defense is going to continue where they left off last season. So we've established that Illinois defense is going to be really good. I think it's going to be one of the best defenses in the Big Ten Conference. Now you got to move to the offensive side of the football. And the first thing you got to talk about is the run game, right? You lose a great player like Chase Brown, a great Big Ten running back like Chase Brown. How do you replace that, especially at a program like Illinois? The first thing I want to take a look at is this offensive line, because last year, this was a criticized offensive line at times last season, but if you really look back at it, this was a semifinalist for the Joe Moore Award. So although they were maybe lightly criticized a little bit, especially maybe in that bowl game where they really couldn't get the run game going all that much, this was still a fairly solid offensive line. Now maybe Chase Brown had them look better than maybe they actually were, but this is still going to be a good offensive line. That's where I want to start with for Illinois. Let's start first with Isaiah Adams, likely lining up at one of the guards this season, 6'5", 315, second team preseason all Big Ten type of guy. PFF graded him the number 5 guard in the Big Ten, number 2 in the Big Ten blocking guard, a run blocking guard. So this is a guy that can road grade. This is a guy that you can run behind. Zy Chrysler is another guy that's the other guard, 6'6", 330 pounds, all Big Ten, honorable mention as well. Julian Pearl is another guy at tackle, all Big Ten, honorable mention, second or third team preseason, all Big Ten, no matter where you look. So this is an offensive line that has some guys, and then if they can fill the holes in and get more experience as the season goes on, I believe this is going to be a solid offensive line. I think they're going to have to be a better offensive line because you don't have a guy back there in Chase Brown that can break a tackle that's, when you're 2 yards back in the backfield and make it a 3-yard run. I don't know if Reggie Love or Josh McCray really provide that in the run game. Let's talk about those guys, Josh McCray and Reggie Love. I was not overly impressed with Reggie Love last season. The reason why he got a bulk of the carries as the number 2 is because Josh McCray was battling injuries for pretty much the whole season. 316 yards and 2 touchdowns for Reggie Love a year ago. Josh McCray was slated to be a 1-2 punch, really, with Chase Brown before injuries really crept up on him. In 2021, he had 549 yards and a couple of scores. I'd expect Josh McCray to be the 1A to Reggie Love's 1B. That's what I expect them to be. They're kind of in a Michigan State situation from a couple of years back, right? Remember when Kenneth Walker, after that great 2021 season, they bring in Jalen Berger, they bring in Jarek Broussard last season to try to equal what Kenny Walker was able to put up. Now, Jalen Berger kind of got better as the season went along, but it didn't really work out for Jarek Broussard. Can Reggie Love and Josh McCray put up similar numbers together? That's a tall task, I think, for both of those guys, but I think it's going to be Josh McCray that'll eventually be the number 1 back going forward. I think it's going to be a solid running game if this offensive line can get better and Josh McCray is healthy and he emerges. I think it's going to provide balance for an offense that, to be honest with you, is probably going to throw the football a little bit more. Of course, last year you had Tommy DeVito, touchdown Tommy DeVito, very efficient, protected the football. They didn't really ask him to do too much, but now you bring in a transfer from Ole Miss in Luke Altmaier, who I believe has more arm talent and can push the ball down the field a little bit more and a little bit better than Tommy DeVito could. You look at Luke Altmaier, 4-star guy when he came out, Elite 11, top 150 type of guy. This guy has the arm talent. He was just in a crowded quarterback room with Lane Kiffin over there at Ole Miss. And I think a big reason why they're going to throw more and maybe be more successful in the passing game is because who they have out on the perimeter as well. You got to look at Isaiah Williams, the converted quarterback. Over 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns combined the last 2 seasons. Very electric player in space. You know that because he's also involved in the return game as well. Converted quarterback, as I just mentioned. So he's got a good knowledge. You got to think of this offense here. He's a guy that could definitely make some plays. You get it to him in the short passing game, medium or long passing game, he can get it done in all facets down the field. How about Pat Bryant? Tall guy, go up and get the football, 6'3", 453 yards, 2 touchdowns last season, big target. Seems like he always came up in key spots. And you got Casey Washington as well. So you've got receivers out on the edge that I believe can make plays. They're going to get better probably because they're going to throw the football a little bit more, and Luke Altmaier is a little bit more talented throwing the football. Maybe last season they needed to offset the run game with the throw game. It could be a little bit opposite. I see a very balanced offense for Illinois in 2023. I see a solid offense. Is it a good offense? Is it a great offense? We're going to learn. We're going to learn that, I think, as the season goes along. I think it's all going to, how's the offensive line going to do? Where are the running backs talent-wise? What can they create on their own when maybe an assignment is missed or a block is missed? It happens. You're not going to get every single block on every single play. What type of talent do you have back there? If this Illinois team can't really run the football that effectively, do they have enough firepower to throw the ball even more? Can they throw it 30 to 35 times and win a football game and not run it as more? This is a Brett Bielema offense. They want to block downhill. They want to road grade. They want to go forward. They want to run the football, run play action, and throw the ball off of it. So we're going to see how things are going to change up a little bit here for Illinois on the offensive side of the football. Okay, let's transition here to the schedule for Illinois. This is how it shakes out. Their non-conference is a little bit tricky. Toledo was a good MAC team. They get them at home. On the road at Kansas on Friday, September 8th. Kansas with Jalen Daniels was the sweetheart of college football, right? They were the heartthrob of college football early in that season. This is a team that can move the ball. This is a team that can put up points. When everybody's healthy, on the road at Kansas is going to be a difficult game. And then you look at Florida Atlantic. This is a team that's coached by Tom Herman. Casey Thompson is their quarterback, so watch out for the Owls. Not the easiest non-conference slate. I got September 16th schedule on my calendar, though. September 16th, when they take on the Penn State Nittany Lions. That'll be Drew Aller's first Big Ten Conference game. Right, West Virginia and Delaware before that. West Virginia and Delaware. And then now, the game after that, you got to take on this vaunted defense. I can't wait to see that. How does this Penn State run game, that great Nick Singleton and Katron Allen run game, go up against this great front seven at Illinois? And then the Penn State defense against Illinois' offense. I think that's going to be, there's a potential for an upset there. Not saying it will happen, but there's a potential for an upset in that Penn State game early on. And then I look all the way down at November 18th. That game at Iowa could be a game to determine who goes to the Big Ten championship, right? Let's say Illinois loses to Penn State, and then maybe they beat Wisconsin, lose on the road to someone like Maryland or Minnesota. They have 2 conference losses. They play Iowa. That could be a hard-fought defensive football game. Remember last year, it wasn't exactly an offensive shootout. Let's just put it that way. But that could be a game that late in the season that could determine who goes to Indianapolis and who plays for the Big Ten championship. Look, I like Illinois entering this season. I think their defensive front is really good. I think it's one of the best front sevens in all of college football. think a big X factor is what the run game is going to look like. If the run game and Josh McCray and this offensive line can take steps forward and they have a balanced offense, because I believe they're going to need that run game to get the full potential out of Luke Altmaier this season. If they can achieve that balance and that defense is good and the secondary is serviceable and not a liability, this is an Illinois team that could make it to Indianapolis in 2023.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.